What the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. This statement might sound absurd to many. After all, how can everything I conceive and believe actually happen? If that were true, why do most people still live in debt, afraid to start a business, lacking the courage to invest or even to dream big? The truth is, there's a hidden code, principles that Napoleon Hill studied for decades, conversing with millionaires and observing how the human mind reacts to wealth and scarcity. Today, I'll reveal 10 commandments of wealth hidden in the Bible itself, but brought to light by Hill in a practical and powerful way. The Bible already said, "All things are possible to him that believeth." And Napoleon Hill translated this practically by stating that all wealth begins with two invisible keys, a burning desire and an unshakable faith. When we talk about wealth, most people immediately think of money, but Hill shows us that wealth is, above all, an idea, a fire that needs to be born in the mind and heart. How many times have you given up on something before even trying because you believed you weren't capable? How many times have you convinced yourself that it was too big for you? The truth is that poverty of thought is far more destructive than a lack of resources. Burning desire isn't just wanting something superficially. It's having a reason so strong that it prevents you from turning back. It's the kind of motivation that makes you get out of bed early, even when you're tired, and keep going even when everyone around you would have given up. And here comes the question, what do you truly desire? Because statistically, most people can't answer this question clearly. Many say they want money, but when you ask how much, how, and why, the answer doesn't exist. Without a defined desire, there's no energy for action. Unshakable faith is the fuel that keeps that desire burning. Imagine someone trying to start a business believing deep down that they'll fail. That person has already lost before they even begin. Psychological studies show that internal belief directly influences our decisions and behavior. People who believe they can win tend to take more action, persist more in the face of obstacles, and statistically achieve more results. This isn't mysticism. It's science applied to human behavior. But how do you apply this in practice? The next time you catch yourself saying, "I can't," immediately replace it with, "How can I?" It seems simple, but this linguistic change shifts the brain's focus. Instead of closing off the possibility, you open up space to find solutions. For example, if you want to pay off your debts, instead of saying, "I can't pay," ask, "What can I do today to generate extra income and start paying?" If you want to change jobs, instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," ask, "What skills do I need to develop to get this job?" This is when desire meets faith, and both begin to shape new realities. Napoleon Hill experienced this intensely when he was a young reporter. When interviewing Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men in the world at the time, he received an unthinkable challenge: to dedicate 20 years of his life studying and deciphering the formula for wealth from the minds of America's most successful men. Think about the impact of that. A young man with no money, no name, facing a proposal that seemed impossible. Anyone could have refused, citing a lack of resources or experience. But Hill accepted. Why? Because his desire to learn and his faith in his own abilities spoke louder than his objections. And it was this decision that changed the course of his life and allowed millions to be impacted by his teachings. This moment sparks a reflection. How many times have we missed opportunities because we don't believe in ourselves? How many times have we retreated from a chance, afraid it seemed too big for us? Burning desire and unshakable faith don't eliminate fear, but they give you the courage to move forward despite it. And here's a challenge. For the next 7 days, write every day, as soon as you wake up, what your greatest financial desire is and why it's important to you. Read it aloud, believing it as if it were already a reality. You'll realize that over time, your mind begins to work differently. You'll see opportunities that you previously missed. You'll feel a strength you may not have known you had. This is the beginning of the journey to wealth, because before achieving it financially, you need to achieve it mentally. One of the greatest secrets to wealth is mastering your own mind. There's no point in desiring something intensely if you can't control your thoughts, emotions, and habits. The problem isn't dreaming. The problem is turning that dream into reality without getting lost along the way. This is precisely where most people fail. Lack of discipline transforms great ideas into empty promises, and it's easy to understand why. Just look at how, statistically, most people spend more than they earn. The urge to impress others and the need for immediate gratification end up overcoming reason. How many times have you received your paycheck and, in less than a week, felt like the money had evaporated? How many times have you looked at your credit card bill and thought, how did I get to this amount? The undisciplined mind seeks immediate pleasure, while the trained mind seeks long-term construction. If you earn $5,000 and spend $5,200, you're already trapped in an invisible snare that erodes not only your finances, but also your peace of mind. What seems like just a slip in spending turns into a prison that renews itself every month. Mastering your mind requires you to learn to live below your means, investing the difference in something that will yield future rewards. But are we prepared to say no to a momentary desire in exchange for a greater goal? Studies in behavioral economics prove that people who develop greater emotional control over money show higher levels of prosperity and well-being. This doesn't just mean having more money, but also less anxiety, less stress, and more clarity in making decisions. Financial discipline isn't a matter of mathematics, it's a matter of emotion, and mastering that emotion is what separates those who accumulate wealth from those who merely survive. Now, consider something curious. How many people do you know who finance luxury cars but hesitate to pay for a book or a course that could change their mindset? This is one of the greatest paradoxes of our time. People prefer to flaunt a status symbol than to acquire the knowledge that could multiply their assets. It's a choice that reveals not only a lack of discipline, but also a lack of awareness of what truly builds prosperity. Napoleon Hill experienced firsthand the impact of a lack of discipline and also the power of regaining it. He went through bankruptcies and profound financial crises. He lost everything at certain points in his life, but he didn't give up. On the contrary, he used these falls as mental training. He rebuilt his life several times because he had learned to control his thoughts and emotions. This example is powerful because it confronts us with a harsh truth. No matter how many times you fall, if you have mental discipline, you can always get back up. And at the same time, it evokes in us admiration and even shock at how someone can start over so many times without being destroyed by despair. Self-discipline and mastery of the mind are, therefore, a hidden commandment of wealth. Because without them, all desire and all faith become fragile in the face of the first storms. Having self-control is like building an invisible fortress. When the winds of difficulty arrive, you may sway, but you don't collapse. It is in this fortress that true wealth begins to be protected and multiplied. One of the most powerful principles revealed by Napoleon Hill is that of group consciousness, what he called the mastermind. The Bible already anticipated this secret when it said, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." This means that alone the human being is limited, but in conjunction with other minds, it creates a multiplied force, something greater than the sum of its parts. Think about your life. How many times have you tried to achieve a goal alone and in the face of difficulties given up? And how many times, when surrounded by people who believed in you, did you find strengths you didn't even know you had? The power of the mastermind lies not only in emotional support, but in the sum of ideas, experiences, and perspectives. The human mind has limitations, but when two or more people unite harmoniously for the same purpose, a collective intelligence emerges capable of creating extraordinary solutions. It's as if you gain access to an invisible energy that accelerates results. However, most people live surrounded by negative voices, criticism, and limiting beliefs. How many times have you shared a dream and heard something like, "That's impossible. It's not for you. Better not to risk it"? If you only feed on these voices, how do you expect to prosper? Practical example. If your desire is to build financial independence, but you only associate with people who complain about their salaries and live in debt, it's very likely that you'll repeat the same patterns. Now imagine joining a group of people who talk about investments, business, and growth. The simple change of environment alters your references, your thoughts, and consequently, your actions. It's impossible to grow when you're trapped in an environment that only shrinks your horizons. Henry Ford was a living example of this principle. He wasn't considered the most intelligent man of his time, but he had the wisdom to surround himself with brilliant people. Ford brought together engineers, financiers, and strategists who complemented his limitations. While many ridiculed him, saying he didn't have enough education, his answer was simple. "I don't need to know everything. I just need a button on my desk to call someone who does." This thought revolutionized the automotive industry and proved that wealth doesn't depend only on individual intelligence, but on the ability to build alliances. And here's a practical challenge. For the next 7 days, avoid talking about money or your goals with people who only complain or mock your dreams. Instead, seek out content, books, groups, or even a friend who has a more positive and constructive vision. Observe how your energy changes, how your mind begins to see new possibilities. It seems simple, but this small environmental adjustment can completely redefine your destiny. Group consciousness is, therefore, an essential commandment of wealth. It's not just about who you are, but who you connect with, because the people around you are either sharpening your blade or rusting it. And the big question is, which side will you choose to be on? Persistence is the invisible link that connects all the other commandments of wealth. Without it, desire fades, discipline is lost, and even the best support group dissolves. The Bible says, "Run in such a way as to win the prize." This passage shows that it's not enough to start the race. You need to cross the finish line. But how many projects in your life have you left along the way? How many courses did you start and didn't finish? How many business ideas remained just on paper? How many plans were abandoned at the first difficulty? The truth is that most people don't fail because they can't, but because they give up too soon. Persistence means pushing forward even when everything around you screams, "Stop!" It's about enduring the silence of unanswered efforts, weathering delays, managing frustration, and still keeping your eyes fixed on the goal. Think of someone who joins a gym in January, bursting with motivation, only to vanish by February. The same happens with entrepreneurs who, facing their first crisis, decide it wasn't meant to be. Persistence isn't glamorous. It's daily grit. It's getting up when your body and mind yell at you to quit. Studies from Stanford University show that people with a clear purpose are far more resilient in the face of hardship. Knowing why they're doing something allows them to endure almost any pain. It's like an internal fuel source that doesn't deplete in headwinds. Purpose gives meaning to persistence. Without it, every obstacle feels insurmountable. Napoleon Hill experienced devastating grief when he lost an infant son. This tragedy could have paralyzed him, shattered his faith, and destroyed his work. Instead, he transformed that pain into an even greater purpose: to help others overcome their own adversity and believe that life can be rebuilt even after the deepest losses. This resonates deeply because it shows that even from the most profound wounds, a mission capable of impacting millions can be born. Persistence also has a practical aspect. Each time you persevere through difficulty, you're training your mind to become stronger than your circumstances. It's like strengthening an invisible muscle that only grows under pressure. True confidence is forged in this resistance. Because when you realize you can keep going despite the pain, you begin to believe that no obstacle can stop you. The commandment of persistence challenges us not to give up halfway. Here's a powerful practice. Choose a simple but meaningful goal and commit to not abandoning it for 30 days, no matter what. It could be reading 10 pages of a book every day, saving a specific amount of money, or adopting a new habit. The result won't just be the achievement of the goal, but the feeling of inner victory that proves you can finish what you start. This feeling transforms into confidence, and confidence transforms into power. Persisting, therefore, isn't just stubbornly clinging to something. It's proving to yourself that you have the strength to weather storms, endure losses, handle setbacks, and still keep moving forward. This commandment separates those who merely dream from those who actually achieve. Because true wealth, before being measured in numbers, is measured in the ability to not give up when everything seems to be against you. There's a hidden commandment of wealth that often goes unnoticed: creative imagination. The Bible teaches, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Napoleon Hill understood this practically and showed that imagination is the laboratory where all the world's riches are conceived. Before any invention, any company, any fortune, it all began in someone's mind. Think for a moment. How many ideas have crossed your mind that could have changed your life, but you let slip away? How many times have you thought about a project, but insecurity caused you to bury that seed before it even germinated? Creative imagination is the ability to see the invisible and transform ideas into reality. Hill said that every achievement begins as a mental impulse, and how we handle those impulses defines the future we'll have. Fear, doubt, and procrastination kill dreams before they even leave the drawing board. How many people do you know who have said, "That's a great idea, but it's not for me," or "Someone will invent that someday"? Often that someone could have been you. Practical example: imagine two people with the same salary. One keeps their ideas in a notebook, reflects on how to turn those ideas into opportunities, seeks references, and talks to people in the field. The other lets the ideas pass as mere daydreams. 10 years later, the difference between them is striking. The first has turned at least one of those ideas into a source of income. The second continues to complain about their luck. And there's living proof of this commandment's power. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because they said he lacked imagination. Years later, his creative vision built one of the planet's largest entertainment empires. This didn't happen because he had money at the start, but because he believed his imagination could become reality. But here's the crucial detail. Imagination doesn't flourish in tired, overloaded minds dominated by routine. You need to create moments of silence, reflection, and stimulation for new ideas to emerge. Neuroscience studies show that the brain is more creative when relaxed, which is why we often have good ideas in the shower or during a walk. The problem is that most people are so caught up in the rush that they don't give space for the new to emerge. Napoleon Hill also experienced this. During the years he interviewed great entrepreneurs, he realized that the most revolutionary moments of their lives stemmed from seemingly simple insights, but ones that were valued and cultivated. He himself wrote many of his works inspired by ideas that arose during moments of solitary reflection. This account evokes in us something between surprise and admiration, because it shows that great transformations don't begin in luxurious offices, but in minds willing to imagine. Here's a challenge. Over the next 10 days, set aside at least 15 minutes each day just to think. No cell phones, no distractions. Get a notebook and write down all the ideas that come to you, no matter how absurd they seem. At the end of that period, reread your notes and see how many of those ideas can be turned into small, practical steps. You'll be surprised by the creative force that was dormant within you. Creative imagination, therefore, is a fundamental commandment of wealth, because without it there is no innovation, no progress, no transformation. It is what ignites the spark of the impossible and shows that all reality was, one day, just an idea. There's a hidden commandment of wealth that few people dare to face. Decision-making. The Bible says, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." Napoleon Hill reinforced that indecision is one of the greatest causes of poverty, and that wealth belongs to those who know how to decide quickly and change slowly, only when there are solid reasons. How many opportunities have passed you by and been lost because you took too long to make a decision? How many times has the fear of making a mistake made you choose inertia, which in the end is always the worst choice? Indecision is a silent prison. It drains energy, generates anxiety, and steals chances. It's like standing before two doors and, because you don't choose either, remaining eternally stuck in the hallway. The fear of choosing wrong makes many people prefer not to choose, but not deciding is also a decision, and almost always the most expensive one. A Columbia University study showed that the more options people have, the greater the likelihood of paralysis in the face of choice. This proves that most are not prepared to decide, and precisely because of this, those who train themselves to act with clarity gain ground. Practical example. Imagine someone who receives a job offer in another city. This person spends days, weeks, even months analyzing, afraid to change. Meanwhile, the opportunity fades away. On the other hand, the one who evaluates quickly, defines the pros and cons, and decides, opens the way for new possibilities and accelerates their growth. This is the difference between those who build the future and those who remain trapped in the past. Napoleon Hill learned the importance of decision-making early on. When Andrew Carnegie challenged him to dedicate 20 years of his life to studying the minds of America's most successful men, Hill had only a few seconds to respond. If he had hesitated, perhaps his story would have ended right there, and the book, Think and Grow Rich, would never have existed. This account generates in us admiration and even a certain unease. How many times in life have we let something grand slip away simply because we took too long to decide? And here's a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, in all the small choices of your day, what you'll eat, which path you'll take, which task you'll prioritize, train yourself to decide in under 60 seconds. This simple exercise strengthens your mind for bigger choices because it creates the habit of clarity and action. Making firm decisions is, therefore, a commandment of wealth. Because those who don't decide surrender their future to chance, but those who decide build their destiny with their own hands. The big question is, will you continue to wait for someone to decide for you, or will you take control of your life and open the door that can change everything? True wealth doesn't begin in your wallet, but in your mind. It's the burning desire that ignites the flame, the discipline that keeps the fire alive, the persistence that withstands headwinds, the right connections that amplify your strength, and the imagination that opens paths where there were once only walls. When you understand this, you realize that prosperity isn't an accident, but a daily construction of aligned thoughts, choices, and actions. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with me until now. And I'll see you in the next video, where you'll climb another step on this journey of wisdom and become 1% better than you are now.